Now, Formula 1 is no stranger to the concept of backmarker teams, teams which generally struggle to get their feet off the ground both financially and also performance-wise as well. So they struggle to get into the points, they struggle to even reach Q1, for example. And what is not helped is the majority of the time, these sorts of teams are filled with drivers who aren't always remembered for their talent. However, there are always, of course, exceptions to these rules. But over the next two videos, I'm going to be breaking down the slowest backmarker teams in the hybrid era as we are about to enter the ground effect era. So we're going to be going all the way back to 2014 and taking a look at those backmarker teams and exactly which one was the slowest. And video number 1 in this two-part series is going to look at qualifying performance, and video number 2 will look at race pace. So let's start in 2021, the latest season of Formula 1, where it was the Haas team who were the slowest in 21 of 22 events where a representative time was set, with the italics events being the ones where they were not the slowest, in this case Mexico 2021. Then any event which is followed by an asterisk was affected by rain. Let's just pull up what exactly I'm going to be crunching. So let's pull up the Bahrain Grand Prix of 2021. So Haas's fastest time in Q1 was a 1:32.449. We're taking a look at the fastest time in qualifying because that is how fast this backmarker team goes. Now, because there can exist scenarios where there are two backmarker teams, I can't compare this time, the 1:32.449, to the next non-Haas car, as that could well be the second backmarker team of the year. So what we actually have to compare it to is the Q2 cutoff time, which was a 1:31.653. So all the times that we're looking at in today's video are from Q1. And the time difference was just under 8 tenths and 0.86%. We're going to be working in percentages across this video as it's much easier to compare all of the races and all of the years. So this calculation has been done for all of the remaining races of the 2021 season, and we end up with a graph that looks a little something like this on screen. We've got the white outlined grey bars, which are where Mick Schumacher was faster, and the darker grey outlined bars are where Nikita Mazepin was faster. And averaging every single one of these percents on screen, we get that Haas were 0.83% behind Q2. However, excluding the two rain-affected qualifying sessions of Belgium and Russia, they were 0.78% behind Q2, with Mexico being the only event where they were not the slowest, where Aston Martin actually was, with Mick Schumacher being faster on 20 occasions of 22, and they were ahead of the Q2 cutoff time twice, in France and Turkey. So with 2021 all done and dusted, let's take a look at 2020, where it was both Williams and Alfa Romeo who were slowest in 7 of 17 events where a representative time was set. So let's just take a look at Williams first, as they fill out this whole 17 race season overall. We see that they actually got through to Q2 on numerous occasions. However, averaging all of the percentages, we end up with them being 0.23% behind Q2. And then excluding the two rain-affected qualifying sessions of Styria and Turkey, we actually bring this percentage down to just 0.2% behind Q2. And then plotting on the Alfa Romeo bars as well, we end up with an extremely erroneous data value for Turkey, where Alfa Romeo were 5.25% ahead of the Q2 cutoff time in the rain-affected Turkey qualifying session. We're averaging all of these percentages out, including the rain-affected races, they were actually 0.04% ahead of Q2. However, if we were to exclude the erroneous data values of Styria and Turkey, they were actually 0.28% behind. With Williams beating the Q2 cutoff time 9 times across the year, where they were actually the Q2 cutoff time twice, in the 70th anniversary Grand Prix and also in Portugal. With Alfa ahead of the Q2 cutoff time 7 times, and they were themselves the Q2 cutoff time 3 times, in Spain, Germany and Abu Dhabi. So we then head to 2019, where it was Williams once again who were the backmarker team in qualifying, slowest in all of the 21 events. And plotting on their percentages throughout all of these rounds, we see that they were super close to the Q2 cutoff time in Hungary, just 0.07% behind. And averaging all of these percentages out, we get Williams being 1.37% behind the Q2 cutoff time. That is just over a second at the long circuits such as Spa and Azerbaijan. Equally, there were no rain-affected qualifyings in 2019, so there is nothing to exclude. Williams were never ahead of the Q2 cutoff, and Russell was ahead of Kubica in all 21 events. So moving from 2019 down to 2018, where it was once again Williams who were the slowest, but in just 9 of 21 events. And plotting them on the graph, we end up with it looking a little like this, where again they were ahead of the Q2 cutoff time just a few times, and came super close a couple others. Averaging out all of these though, we end up with them being 0.44% behind the Q2 time, and excluding the rain-affected qualifying of Belgium, they were actually 0.34% behind. Where they were ahead of the Q2 cutoff time 4 times, and they were the Q2 cutoff time on 3 occasions. With Sirotkin beating Stroll 13-8 in both of their rookie seasons of Formula 1. And so from 2018, we'll now take a look at 2017, where it was Sauber who was slowest in 11 of 20 events. And plotting on their graph overall, it looks a little like this. Very similar to the Williams of the previous year, where they were ahead of the Q2 cutoff time a couple of occasions, and extremely close on a few other. We're averaging all of these percents across the year, they were 0.62% the Q2 cutoff time, and excluding the rain-affected sessions, this was reduced to 0.56. Where Sauber beat the Q2 cutoff time twice, and they were the Q2 cutoff time on 3 occasions, with Wehrlein in the white border beating Ericsson 11-9. Where we move from 2017 now to 2016, where it was Manor who was slowest in 9 of 21 events when the representative time was set. And averaging all of these percentage values, we get Manor being 0.75% behind the Q2 time, and excluding the rain-affected session of Hungary, they were 0.57% behind Q2. Where they were ahead of the cutoff time on 3 occasions, and they were the cutoff time twice at the end of the season in Mexico and Abu Dhabi. With Rio Haryanto being ahead of Pascal Wehrlein on 5 occasions, Esteban Ocon being ahead of Wehrlein on 2 occasions, and Wehrlein being ahead of them both on 14 occasions. And moving from 2016, we'll head down to 2015, where it was once again Marussia who was slowest in all 18 events that they entered, where a representative time was set, as due to financial difficulties they did not actually enter the Australian Grand Prix of round number 1. And averaging all of these values out, we get Marussia being 3.2% behind the Q2 cutoff time, and excluding the rain-affected session of Malaysia and USA, that just brings it down to 3.1. With Marussia never actually being within 1.5 seconds of getting into Q2. That is how slow this year's car was. With Roberto Merri being ahead of Will Stevens on 4 occasions, Alexander Rossi being ahead of Will Stevens on 3 occasions, and Will Stevens being ahead of them both on 11 occasions. And then finally we'll take a look at 2014, where Caterham was the slowest in 11 of 17 events that they entered this year, once again hitting financial difficulties in the latter stages of the season and not attending the USA Grand Prix or the Brazilian Grand Prix. And averaging all of these percentages, they were 1.36% behind Q2, and excluding the rain events, they were 1.27%, where Caterham were just the Q2 cutoff time on 1 occasion. With Kobayashi being ahead of both Ericsson and Lotterer on 12 occasions, and Ericsson being ahead of Kobayashi on 1, and Lotterer being ahead just the 1 time. So now that we've taken a bit of an in-depth look at each of the Backmarker teams, let's order them and take a look at exactly which one was the slowest Backmarker team. And starting at the bottom of this list, we have Williams of 2020, where they were slowest for 41% of the season and just behind the Q2 cutoff time by 0.2%, closely followed by the Alfa Romeo of the same year, again slowest in 41% of the races, and they were 0.28% behind Q2. We then take a bit of a year jump to 2018 with Williams once again, slowest in almost 43% of the races, and they were 0.34% 1% behind Q2. Then heading over to Sauber of 2017, slowest in 55% of the races and just over 0.5% behind Q2. With Manor of 2016 coming up next, slowest in again 43% of the races entered, and they were behind Q2 by 0.57%, just a 0.01 difference to Sauber of 2017. Then we end up with the most recent year, Haas of 2021, slowest in 95% of the races entered, and they were 0.78% off of Q2. We then head to the first turbo hybrid era of 2014 with Caterham, who were slowest in 64% of the races that they entered, and they were 1.27% off of Q2. Then we end up with Williams of 2019, slowest in 100% of the races that they entered, being 1.37% off of Q2. And then finally, the slowest backmarker team in qualifying was the Marussia of 2015, slowest in all 18 events they entered, being 3.1% off of Q2. So quite a significant jump between the Williams of 2019 and the Marussia of 2015. And there we go, there is the slowest backmarker team of the turbo hybrid era in qualifying. Stick around in the next couple of weeks for video number 2 in this little series where we'll be delving into the race pace of the same backmarker teams. But that is all I've got for you today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next video with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then.